The moment Claire Bennett's fingers brushed the edge of those $100 bills, she knew her life was about to shatter. 30 seconds ago, she'd been a waitress trying to survive her second week in Manhattan. Now she was a thief. At least that's what the cold-eyed billionaire across the table wanted everyone to believe. Nathan Hale's voice cut through the restaurant like a blade. "Security, now!" Every head turned, every phone came up, and Claire understood, with perfect, horrible clarity, that some traps aren't meant to catch criminals. They're meant to destroy people. Want to see how this story ends? Stay until the final word, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The first thing anyone noticed about Aurelius, Nathan Hale's flagship restaurant in Manhattan, was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the quality of it. Conversations happened in murmurs, silverware never clinked, even laughter seemed to lower itself, as if the restaurant's vaulted ceilings and marble floors had trained the very air to behave. Claire Bennett had been working there for exactly 13 days, and she still felt like an imposter. She moved between tables with the careful steps of someone walking on ice, her hands steady on the tray, but her pulse doing something else entirely. The other servers glided. They belonged. Claire just tried not to break anything or forget which fork went where or make eye contact with the kind of people who wore watches worth more than her childhood home. "Table 12 needs water," Marcus said as he passed her in the narrow corridor between the kitchen and the main dining room. He didn't slow down. Marcus never slowed down. He'd been at Aurelius for 3 years and moved like the building was an extension of his body. "Got it," Claire said, but he was already gone. Table 12 sat in the corner, the expensive corner where the lighting was softer and the tables had more space between them. A man sat alone, his jacket draped over the back of his chair, his phone face down on the white tablecloth. Claire had served him twice before. She knew 3 things about him. He never made small talk, he ordered the same wine every time, and he tipped exactly 18%. What she didn't know, what none of the staff knew except the manager and maybe Marcus, was that the man's name was Nathan Hale, and he owned the entire restaurant, and the building it occupied, and about 40 other properties scattered across 3 continents. Nathan didn't come to Aurelius often. When he did, he came alone, late, and he sat in the corner where he could see the entire room. Tonight he'd ordered the tasting menu and barely touched it. The plates came and went. He'd taken a few bites of each dish, nodded once or twice, made a note on his phone. Now he sat with his wine half finished, his shoulders slightly slouched, his eyes closed. Claire approached with the water pitcher, her steps quiet on the polished floor. "Sir?" she said softly. "Would you like—" He didn't respond. She hesitated. His chest rose and fell in the steady rhythm of sleep. One arm rested on the table, his fingers loosely curled. The other hung at his side. His head was tilted back against the chair, his face smoothed of whatever tension had been there before. Claire glanced around. The dining room was nearly empty now, just 2 other tables, both finishing dessert. Marcus was nowhere in sight. The hostess stand was vacant. She should wake him. That was probably protocol. But he looked so— Her thought stopped. There was money on the table. Not a wallet, not a credit card left behind. Cash. A stack of it, sitting just beside his phone, crisp hundreds bound together with a silver clip. She could see the edges, the way the bills fanned slightly, the small engraving on the clip that caught the light. Claire's throat went dry. She looked at the man again, still asleep. She looked at the money. Easily $5,000, maybe more. Just sitting there in the open, inches from the edge of the table, as if someone had set it down and forgotten. Her first instinct was panic. Her second was to scan the room again, for Marcus, for the manager, for anyone who could tell her what to do. But the room stayed quiet. The other diners weren't paying attention. The kitchen doors were closed. She looked back at the money. It wasn't hers, obviously. But leaving it there felt dangerous, wrong. Anyone could walk by. A diner heading to the restroom. Another server. Someone from the street who'd wandered in. She'd worked in enough restaurants to know that people noticed cash. People took cash. Claire made a decision. She set the water pitcher down on a nearby stand and stepped closer to the table. Her hand reached out. Not to take the money, but to move it. To tuck it under his phone maybe, or slide it closer to him where it wasn't so exposed. Her fingers brushed the edge of the top bill. Nathan's eyes opened, not slowly, not the gradual blink of someone waking naturally. His eyes snapped open, fully alert, and locked onto hers with a precision that made her breath catch. "What?" he said quietly. "Are you doing?" Claire jerked her hand back like she'd touched fire. I wasn't. You were reaching for my money." His voice was calm, flat, the kind of calm that was worse than shouting. "No." The word came out too fast, too desperate. "I was trying to move it. Someone could take it." Someone did. He sat up slowly, deliberately, his gaze never leaving her face. "You did." "I didn't." Claire's voice cracked. Her heart was slamming against her ribs. "I swear, I wasn't. I watched you." Nathan picked up his phone, tapped the screen once. "Do you know what this is?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. "It's a recording," he said. "I have 3 cameras in this restaurant. One of them has a very clear view of this table." He paused. "And you?" The blood drained from Claire's face. "I don't—" She couldn't get the words out. Her hands were shaking. "I didn't steal anything." "Then why were you touching my money?" "I told you, I was trying to protect it." His mouth curved, but there was no warmth in it. "From who? You're the only one here. That's not—" "Marcus." Nathan's voice rose just slightly, and suddenly Marcus was there, appearing from the back corridor like he'd been summoned by some invisible signal. "Call security." Claire's stomach dropped. "Sir?" Marcus's expression didn't change, but his eyes flicked to Claire for half a second. "This server was attempting to steal from me." Nathan gestured to the money on the table, still sitting there, untouched. "I'd like her removed from the building." "Mr. Hale, I can explain—" Marcus started, but Nathan cut him off. "I'm not asking for an explanation. I'm telling you what I saw." The other diners were watching now. Phones were coming out. Claire could see it happening in her peripheral vision, the slow turn of heads, the whispered conversations, the woman at table 9 holding up her phone like she was recording. "Please," Claire said, and she hated how small her voice sounded. "I didn't do anything. I was just—" "You were just reaching for money that doesn't belong to you." Nathan stood, picking up the stack of bills and sliding it into his jacket pocket in one smooth motion. "That's called theft. Or were you planning to argue semantics?" "I wasn't stealing." "Then what were you doing?" "I told you." "You told me a story," Nathan said. "It's not a very good one." Marcus stepped forward, his hand hovering near Claire's elbow, but not quite touching. "Claire, we need to go." "No." She pulled away from him, her eyes still on Nathan. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You reached for my property without permission," Nathan said. "In most places, that's enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to have you arrested." The word hit her like a physical blow. Claire felt the room tilt slightly, felt the eyes of every remaining diner burning into her back. "You're firing me," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. "I don't employ thieves," Nathan replied. "I'm not a thief." "Then you're careless." "Which is worse." He picked up his wine glass, examined it for a moment, then set it back down without drinking. "Either way, you don't work here anymore." Claire stood there for a long moment, her mind racing through responses, defenses, arguments that might make him listen. But his expression didn't change. He looked at her the way someone might look at a broken piece of equipment, with mild irritation and complete detachment. "Go," Marcus said quietly behind her, "before this gets worse." She wanted to argue, wanted to scream, to demand that he check his cameras and see that she hadn't taken anything, hadn't even moved the money. But the phones were still up, the other diners still watching, and somewhere in the back of her mind she understood that fighting would only make the recording worse. So she turned and walked. Through the dining room, past the hostess stand, past the kitchen where the line cooks were cleaning down for the night. She didn't look back, didn't let herself cry until she was through the staff exit and out into the alley, where the cold November air hit her face and her knees finally buckled. Claire sank down against the brick wall, her server's apron still tied around her waist, and let the tears come. 13 days. She'd lasted 13 days in New York before the city decided to chew her up and spit her out. She didn't know how long she sat there, long enough for the cold to seep through her thin uniform shirt, long enough for the kitchen staff to finish closing and head out through the same exit, giving her wide berth and avoiding eye contact, long enough for the alley to empty and the street beyond it to quiet. When she finally stood up, her legs were stiff and her face felt frozen. She untied her apron, folded it carefully out of habit, and left it on top of a recycling bin. Then she started walking. The subway station was 3 blocks south. Claire had walked this route every day for almost 2 weeks, memorized the cracks in the sidewalk and the graffiti tags on the construction barriers. Tonight it felt different, longer, like the city itself was stretching away from her. She was halfway to the station when she heard footsteps behind her, fast steps, purposeful. Claire didn't turn around. She'd learned that much in 2 weeks. You didn't turn around for footsteps in New York. You kept walking, kept your head down, pretended you didn't hear. "Miss Bennett." She stopped. The voice was familiar, cold, the same voice that had called her a thief in front of a room full of strangers. Claire turned slowly. Nathan Hale stood under a streetlight 10 feet away, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "What do you want?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "To talk." "We already talked. You fired me." "I did." He stepped closer and Claire fought the urge to step back. "But I didn't finish." "Finish what? Humiliating me?" Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. "You didn't take the money." Claire stared at him. I know you know." Nathan pulled one hand from his pocket and she saw he was holding his phone. "I watched the footage. You reached for it, but you didn't take it. You were moving it. That's what I told you. You did." He pocketed the phone again. "Most people don't." "Don't what?" "Tell the truth." He studied her face in the harsh light. "Most people I test try to lie their way out, come up with elaborate stories, blame someone else. You just kept saying the same thing." The words took a moment to land. "Test?" Claire's voice dropped. "That was a test?" "Yes. You set me up." "I set a trap," Nathan corrected, "for whoever took the bait. 23 servers work at Aurelius. Over the past 6 months, 16 of them have taken money I've left out. You're the 7th who didn't." Claire couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was saying. "It's a simple test," Nathan continued. "I pretend to fall asleep. I leave cash visible. I watch what happens." He paused. "Most people fail." "So you—" Claire's voice rose. "You let me think I was being fired. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You threatened to have me arrested. For a test?" "Yes." The single word was delivered without inflection, without apology. "You're insane," Claire said. "I'm careful." Nathan's expression didn't change. "I need to know who I can trust. Then ask. Run a background check. Don't set people up like criminals. Background checks tell me about the past. This tells me about character." "My character?" Claire laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You just destroyed my reputation in front of half your restaurant. What does that say about yours?" For the first time, Nathan's expression shifted. Something almost like surprise crossed his face. "That wasn't the point," he said. "Then what was?" "To see who you are when no one's watching." People were watching. Everyone was watching. Not before. Nathan took another step closer. "Before I opened my eyes, it was just you and the money. That's when it mattered." Claire shook her head. "I don't care about your philosophy. I just lost my job because you wanted to play detective." "You lost a job," Nathan said. "I'm offering you another one." The words hung in the cold air between them. "What?" "I'm opening a new restaurant," Nathan said. "Smaller than Aurelius, different concept. I need someone to help develop it. Someone who understands hospitality. Someone I can trust." Claire stared at him. "You just fired me." "I tested you. You passed." "By having everyone think I'm a thief?" "I'll make a statement," Nathan said. "Tomorrow. Clarifying what happened. The recording will show you didn't take anything. Your reputation will be fine." "My reputation?" Claire's voice cracked. "You think a statement fixes this? Half those people were recording. It's probably already online." "Then we'll address that too." "We?" Claire stepped back. "There is no we. You don't even know me. I know you didn't steal when you had the chance. I know you told the truth when lying would have been easier. I know you care about protecting things that don't belong to you." Nathan's voice stayed level, but something in his eyes sharpened. "That's more than most people. That's basic decency. Exactly. He pulled something from his inside jacket pocket. A business card. Basic decency is rare, especially in my world. Claire didn't take the card. I don't want to work for you, she said. Why not? Because you're cruel. The word landed heavy. Nathan's hand lowered slightly, but he didn't put the card away. I'm practical, he said. You're cruel, Claire repeated. You set a trap. You watched me fall into it. You made me think my life was over. That's not practical. That's... She searched for the word. That's sadistic. It's necessary. For what? For trust. Nathan's voice hardened. I can't afford to hire someone I don't trust. The cost is too high, the risk is too high, so I test. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it works. It's wrong. Maybe. He held out the card again. But it's honest. Claire looked at the card, at Nathan, at the empty street behind him. I can't believe you think this is an apology, she said. It's not an apology. It's an offer. An offer to work for someone who treats people like lab rats? An offer to build something, Nathan said. Something that matters. With resources most people never get access to. With complete creative freedom. With you. Claire cut him off. A boss who thinks humiliation is a valid hiring strategy. Nathan was quiet for a moment. You're right, he said finally. I handled this badly. The admission surprised her. But my reasoning stands, he continued. I need people I can trust. You proved I can trust you, so I'm offering you a position. Better pay than Aurelius, better hours, actual input on the project. He paused. And yes, working with me, which I understand you find objectionable. Objectionable? Claire laughed again, sharper this time. You think that's the word? What word would you use? Impossible. Nathan studied her for a long moment. Then he set the business card on the low wall beside them, between a crumpled coffee cup and someone's discarded MetroCard. The offer stands through Friday, he said. If you change your mind, call that number. I won't. Probably not. He stepped back, but I had to try. He turned to leave and Claire found herself speaking before she could think better of it. Why me? Nathan stopped. What? You said 7 people passed your test. Why offer this to me instead of them? He turned back and for the first time, something almost human flickered in his expression. Because you called me cruel, he said, and you were right. Then he walked away, his footsteps fading into the ambient noise of the city. Claire stood there alone under the streetlight, staring at the business card he'd left behind. She didn't pick it up. Not that night. She walked to the subway, rode back to her tiny apartment in Queens, and spent 3 hours lying awake in bed, replaying the entire encounter in her mind. The money on the table, the cold accusation, the cameras, the test, the offer. By morning, she'd convinced herself it didn't matter. She'd find another job. New York was full of restaurants. Maybe not places like Aurelius, but somewhere. Anywhere. She'd make it work, except she couldn't shake the feeling that she was lying to herself. 3 days later, she was down to her last $100 and no callbacks from any of the 15 places she'd applied to. One manager had recognized her from the video. Yes, someone had posted it online and told her he couldn't hire controversial staff. Another had been polite but firm. They weren't looking right now. Thanks anyway. Claire sat in her apartment on Thursday night, her laptop open to a job search site that kept showing her the same positions she'd already applied to, and let herself admit the truth. She was drowning, and Nathan Hale had thrown her a rope made of thorns. Friday morning, she found herself standing outside a glass tower in Midtown, the business card in her hand, trying to decide if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. The card was simple. Thick stock, black text, a phone number, an address, no name. She'd called the number 2 hours ago. A woman's voice, professional, warm, had answered on the second ring. Mr. Hale's office. Hi, Claire had almost hung up. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm calling about a job offer. Of course, Miss Bennett. Mr. Hale is expecting you. Can you come to the office this morning? Yes, I can. Perfect. 10 o'clock? Okay. Wonderful. I'll let him know. The call had ended, and Claire had spent the next hour pacing her apartment, trying to figure out what she was doing. Now, standing in front of the building, she was still trying. The lobby was all marble and glass, the kind of space that made you want to whisper. Claire gave her name to the security desk, and a guard directed her to the elevators. 37th floor, he said. Someone will meet you. The elevator was silent, except for the soft chime at each floor. Claire watched the numbers climb and tried not to think about the fact that she could still turn around. She could still leave. She could still... The doors opened. A woman stood waiting, dressed in a sharp gray suit, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She smiled. Miss Bennett? Yes. I'm Angela, Mr. Hale's assistant. Welcome. She gestured down the hallway. He's ready for you. Claire followed her through a corridor lined with abstract art and floor-to-ceiling windows. At the end, Angela stopped in front of a heavy wooden door and knocked once. Come in, Nathan's voice called from inside. Angela opened the door and stepped aside. Claire hesitated for half a second, then walked through. The office was bigger than her entire apartment. Windows along 2 walls overlooked the city. A massive desk sat in the center, but Nathan wasn't behind it. He stood near the windows, looking out at the skyline, his back to the door. Miss Bennett, he said without turning. You came. I did. Sit. He gestured to a chair near the desk. Claire sat, her hands folded in her lap, her heart doing something unsteady in her chest. Nathan turned to face her, and she was struck again by how different he looked here. In the restaurant, he'd been tired, almost ordinary. Here, in his own space, he was something else. Sharper, more focused. I wasn't sure you would, he said. I wasn't either. What changed your mind? Claire met his eyes. I'm out of money, and apparently unemployable. A flicker of something, regret, guilt, crossed his face. The video. Yes. I had it taken down. Too late. People made copies. Nathan nodded slowly. I'm sorry for that. Are you? Yes. The single word carried more weight than she expected. It doesn't fix anything, Claire said. I know. Nathan moved to the desk, leaned against it. But I'm trying. Why? Because you were right. What I did was cruel. He paused. And unnecessary. But you do it again. It wasn't a question. Nathan's expression confirmed it. Probably, he admitted, but I'd handle the aftermath differently. That's not exactly reassuring. I'm not trying to reassure you. I'm trying to be honest. Claire looked at him, really looked. At the expensive suit that fit too well to be off the rack. At the watch that probably cost more than she'd made in a year. At the face that held no warmth but no obvious malice either. Why do you need me? She asked. I told you, I'm opening a new restaurant. You have staff, managers, people who know what they're doing. I have people who know how to execute my vision, Nathan said. I don't have anyone who challenges it. And you think I will? You already have. Claire frowned. When? When you called me cruel. He straightened. When you walked away. When you refused to take the card. Nathan's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but close. Most people in my life tell me what they think I want to hear. You tell me what I need to hear. That's valuable. I'm not a consultant. No. You're something better. He moved around the desk, pulled a folder from a drawer, and set it in front of her. You're someone who understands what a restaurant should feel like. Claire opened the folder. Inside were sketches, floor plans, notes in tight handwriting. What is this? She asked. The new project. I'm calling it Haven. Nathan pointed to one of the sketches. A space with lower ceilings, warmer lighting, smaller tables. It's the opposite of Aurelius, intimate instead of grand, welcoming instead of intimidating, a place people come to feel... He stopped. Feel what? Claire prompted. Safe, Nathan said quietly. The word hung in the air. Claire looked at the sketches again. At the details she hadn't noticed before, the curve of the bar, the placement of the booths, the small handwritten note in the margin that said fireplaces. This doesn't look like your style, she said. It's not. Nathan leaned back against the desk again. That's the point. Then why do it? He was quiet for a long moment. Because my son asked me to, he said finally. Claire looked up, surprised. You have a son? I do. How old? 7. Nathan didn't elaborate, and something in his expression told Claire not to push. "What does he have to do with the restaurant?" she asked instead. "He told me Aurelius is scary." Nathan's voice stayed level, but Claire heard something underneath it. "He's 7 years old, and he's afraid of my restaurant." "So you're building one he won't be afraid of?" "I'm trying to." Claire studied him. This was a different person from the man who'd accused her in front of a room full of strangers. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the same person, just, "You don't know how," she said. Nathan's jaw tightened. "No. You know how to build places that are impressive, perfect, controlled, but you don't know how to build a place that feels like home." "No," he said again. "And you think I do? I think you understand something I don't." Nathan gestured to the folder. "I can hire designers, chefs, managers, but I can't hire—" He paused, searching for the word. "Heart. I can't hire the thing that makes people feel welcome, the thing that turns a room full of tables into a place worth coming back to." Claire looked down at the sketches again. "You barely know me," she said. "I know enough. You know I didn't steal your money. That's it. I know you tried to protect it even when you thought I was asleep. I know you told the truth even when it cost you. I know you walked away from an offer because your principles mattered more than your bank account." Nathan's voice softened slightly. "That's not nothing, Miss Bennett. It's also not a resume." "No, but it's a foundation." Claire was quiet. Outside the windows, the city stretched in all directions, glass and steel and movement. "What exactly are you offering me?" she asked. Nathan pulled a single sheet of paper from the folder and slid it across the desk. "Creative director," he said. "You'd oversee the design, the menu development, the hiring, the training, everything that makes Haven what it becomes." Claire read the number at the bottom of the page. Her eyes widened. "That's market rate," Nathan said, "for someone with actual experience, which you don't have, but I'm willing to bet on potential." "This is insane. It's a risk for both of us." Claire set the paper down. "I've never done anything like this." "I know. I've been a waitress for 6 years. I barely made it through community college. I don't have connections or what I'm looking for," Nathan finished, "which is exactly why I'm asking you. You could hire someone qualified." "I could hire someone experienced," Nathan corrected. "That's not the same thing. Experience teaches you what works. It doesn't teach you what matters. And you think I know what matters? I think you have instincts I don't. I think you see things I miss. I think—" He stopped. "I think my son would like you." The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised her. Claire looked at the paper again, at the number that could change everything, at the job description that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "I need time," she said. "You have until 5 o'clock. That's 6 hours. "Yes, that's not enough time to make this kind of decision." "It's enough time to know whether you're interested," Nathan said. "The rest we figure out as we go." Claire stood. "What if I fail?" "Then we both learned something." "That's not reassuring." "It's honest." She almost laughed. Almost. "I'll call you by 5, she said. Nathan nodded. "Angela will show you out." Claire walked to the door, then stopped. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Why did you really follow me that night, after you fired me?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. "Because you looked like I felt," he said finally. "What does that mean?" "Alone." The word settled over the room like snow. Claire left without responding, but the word followed her all the way to the elevator, through the lobby, out into the street where the city noise swallowed everything. Alone. She thought about it as she walked, thought about Nathan's expression when he said it, thought about her own reflection in the elevator doors. Small, tired, lost in a city that didn't care. Thought about the sketches in that folder, the warmth in those drawings, the vulnerability in a man who'd built an empire on control. By the time she reached the subway, she'd made her decision. At 4:47 p.m., she called the number. Angela answered. "Mr. Hale's office." "It's Claire Bennett," she said. "Tell him yes." Claire's first day started at 6 in the morning with a phone call she didn't expect. "Miss Bennett." Nathan's voice came through sharp and clear. No greeting, no preamble. "There's a car downstairs. You have 15 minutes. She blinked at her phone screen. The call had already ended. 12 minutes later, she stumbled out of her building in yesterday's jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. Her hair pulled into a messy knot, coffee still brewing in the pot upstairs. A black sedan idled at the curb, and when she approached, the driver got out and opened the rear door without a word. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive she couldn't name. Claire slid in, pulling the door shut, and found Nathan sitting on the opposite side, dressed in a dark suit, already working on his laptop. "Good morning," she tried. "We're going to Brooklyn." He didn't look up. "There's coffee in the console." She found a thermos and a cup. The coffee was exactly how she took it. Cream, no sugar. She didn't ask how he knew. "What's in Brooklyn?" "A building." Nathan typed something, frowned at the screen. "It might work for Haven. I need your opinion." "I thought I was starting Monday." "You are. This is Friday. Technically, you don't work for me yet." He finally looked up. "Which means you can be honest without worrying about consequences." "I was planning to be honest anyway." "Good." The drive took 40 minutes through traffic that made Claire's chest tight. Nathan spent most of it on his laptop or his phone, firing off emails and taking calls in a clipped tone that made everyone on the other end sound nervous. Claire watched the city slide past the window and tried not to think about the fact that she'd agreed to work for this man. This stranger who talked like emotion was a waste of time and looked at people the way other people looked at spreadsheets. The building in Brooklyn was a converted warehouse near the water. Red brick, tall windows, a rusted fire escape clinging to one side. Nathan led her through a side entrance into a vast empty space that still smelled faintly of machine oil and old wood. "What do you think?" he asked. Claire walked slowly across the concrete floor, her footsteps echoing. The ceilings were high, supported by old timber beams. Light poured through the windows in thick, dusty columns. The walls were exposed brick, crumbling in places, marked with graffiti and water stains. "It's big," she said. "Too big? For what you described?" "Yes." She turned in a slow circle. "You said Haven was supposed to feel intimate, safe. This feels like an airplane hangar." Nathan pulled out his phone, made a note. "Go on." "The bones are good, the light is beautiful, but you'd have to section it off, bring the ceilings down, create smaller spaces within the space." She walked to one of the windows, looked out at the water beyond. "And even then, I don't know if it would feel right." "Why not?" "Because it's trying too hard to be cool." Claire gestured to the brick, the beams, the industrial aesthetic that was everywhere in Brooklyn now. "People come to places like this to be seen, not to feel at home. You want the opposite." Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he pocketed his phone. "You're right," he said. "Really? Really? I wanted you to tell me I was wrong." He walked toward the exit. "The realtor has been pushing this property for 3 weeks. I needed someone to confirm what I already knew." "You could have just said no." "I did, twice. He called again yesterday." Nathan held the door open for her. "Now I can tell him my creative director vetoed it. That ends the conversation." Claire followed him back to the car, something uncomfortable settling in her stomach. "Is that what this job is?" she asked as the driver pulled away from the curb. "Being the person who says no for you?" "Sometimes." Nathan glanced at her. "Does that bother you?" "I don't know yet." "Fair enough." They drove to 3 more properties that morning. A townhouse in the West Village that was too formal. A corner lot in Soho that had good foot traffic, but terrible acoustics. A garden-level space in the meatpacking district that felt like a cave. At each location, Nathan asked the same question. "What do you think?" And at each location, Claire gave him the truth. Not the polished, diplomatic version. The raw version. The gut feeling that she couldn't quite articulate but knew was right. By noon, they were sitting in the back of the car in traffic on Houston Street, and Nathan was on his phone again. "Cancel the Soho showing for tomorrow," he said to someone on the other end, "and the space on 10th Avenue. "Yes, I'm sure, because they won't work." He paused. "Then find something that will." He ended the call and looked at Claire. "You're expensive," he said. "What?" "I just turned down 2 properties I was seriously considering. That's 8 hours of my team's time wasted. You asked my opinion, and you gave it, which is exactly what I'm paying you for." He almost smiled. Almost. "I'm just noting the cost." Claire looked out the window at the gridlocked street. "Are you always like this?" "Like what?" "Calculating. Everything reduced to time and money. Yes. No hesitation. Does that bother you? It's exhausting. Efficiency usually is. That's not what I meant. Claire turned to face him. I meant you're exhausting, the way you talk, the way you measure everything. It's like being around a computer. Nathan's expression didn't change. I've been called worse. I believe it. This time he did smile, just barely. You're direct. I appreciate that. Even when I'm insulting you? Especially then. Most people dress up their insults as compliments. You just say what you mean. Is that rare in your world? Extremely. The traffic started moving again. Nathan's phone buzzed, but he ignored it. Can I ask you something? Claire said. Go ahead. Why did you really hire me? And don't give me the answer about trust and instincts. I want the real reason. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, watching the city pass by his window. My son is afraid of me, he said finally. The words came out flat, but Claire heard the weight underneath them. What? Not physically. I've never... Nathan stopped, his jaw tight. He's afraid of disappointing me, afraid of doing the wrong thing. He's 7 years old and he second-guesses everything because he thinks I'm judging him. Claire didn't know what to say. Last month he knocked over a glass at dinner, Nathan continued. Just an accident, water everywhere. And he looked at me like I was going to... He stopped again. He apologized 6 times for a glass of water. What did you do? I told him it was fine. Accidents happen. I cleaned it up. Nathan's voice was controlled, but something in it was breaking. And he still looked terrified. Claire watched his profile, the careful blankness of his expression. So, you're building him a restaurant, she said quietly. I'm building him a place where mistakes are allowed, where things can be messy and imperfect, and it doesn't matter. Nathan finally looked at her. And I have no idea how to do that, because everything I've built is the opposite. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked for the truth. He leaned back against the seat. And because I need you to understand what Haven is actually for. It's not just another business venture. It's an apology, Claire finished. Nathan nodded slowly. Yes. They sat in silence for a while. The car turned onto Lafayette, headed uptown. I don't know if I can help you, Claire said. I know. I've never designed anything. I don't know about construction or permits or health codes or any of the things this will actually require. I have people for that. Then what do you need me for? Nathan turned to look at her directly, to remind me what this is supposed to feel like, to push back when I default to control, to tell me when I'm building another Aurelius instead of something different. He paused. To be the person in the room who cares more about warmth than perfection. That's a lot of pressure. Yes. What if I can't do it? Then we'll fail together, Nathan said. But at least we'll fail trying to build something that matters. Claire looked at him, really looked. At the expensive suit that probably cost more than her rent. At the watch that definitely did. At the face that held so much control it had to be exhausting to maintain. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, I'll try. But I need you to do something for me. Nathan waited. Stop treating this like a business deal, Claire said. Stop calculating the cost of every conversation and measuring every interaction. She searched for the words. Just be a person for 5 minutes. I don't know how. The admission was so honest it hurt. Then learn, Claire said. Because your son doesn't need another perfect restaurant. He needs a dad who knows how to spill water without apologizing. Nathan stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something she didn't expect. He laughed. Not much. Just a short surprise sound. But it transformed his face, made him look younger, less rigid, almost human. You're going to be a problem, he said. Good. The following Monday, Claire showed up at Nathan's office building at 8 sharp and was immediately swept into a meeting she wasn't prepared for. 7 people sat around a conference table. Architects, designers, a chef she recognized from a cooking show, Nathan's assistant Angela, and 2 men in suits whose purpose Claire never quite figured out. Nathan sat at the head of the table, and when Claire walked in, he gestured to the empty chair beside him. Everyone, this is Claire Bennett, Haven's creative director. Claire, this is everyone. He didn't bother with individual introductions. We're discussing layout options. What did I miss? A woman with severe glasses and an iPad slid a stack of renderings across the table. We narrowed it to 3 concepts. Option A maintains the traditional dining room structure with a bar component. Option B integrates more casual seating with a communal table element. Option C is wrong, Claire said. Everyone turned to look at her. I'm sorry? The woman's voice could have frozen water. Claire felt her face heat, but she didn't back down. Option C, the one with the open kitchen and the counter seating. It's wrong. Nathan leaned back in his chair, watching. Why? Because it's trying to be Aurelius Light. Same concept, smaller scale. That's not what we're building. The woman, her name tag said Margaret, fixed Claire with a stare. And what are we building, Miss Bennett? Something that doesn't make people feel like they're being watched while they eat. The open kitchen concept has been extremely successful in modern restaurant design. For restaurants that want to perform, Claire interrupted, Haven isn't supposed to be a performance. It's supposed to be a refuge. That's a very idealistic interpretation of what is fundamentally a commercial venture, Margaret said coolly. Claire looked at Nathan. He said nothing, just watched the exchange with that same calculating expression. Can I see the renderings? Claire asked. Margaret slid them across. Claire spread them out, studying each one. The designs were beautiful, sophisticated, modern, exactly what you'd expect from a high-end firm. And completely wrong. These are all the same, she said. Excuse me? Different layouts, same philosophy. Everything's designed to impress, not to welcome. Claire pointed to option A. Look at the spacing here. These tables are too far apart. It makes conversation feel like you're shouting across a void. The spacing allows for privacy. It creates isolation, Claire said. And here, she pointed to option B. This communal table is beautiful, but it's positioned wrong. It's the focal point of the room, which means everyone sitting there feels like they're on display. The communal table is meant to encourage interaction between people who want to be seen, not between people who want to connect. Claire pulled out option C. And this one is the worst because it pretends to be casual while actually being more formal than the others. The open kitchen makes diners feel like they're intruding on the staff's space instead of being welcomed into their own. The room was silent. Margaret's expression could have cut glass. Do you have formal training in restaurant design, Miss Bennett? No. Then perhaps you should defer to those of us who do. Margaret. Nathan's voice was quiet, but it stopped the conversation cold. What did I tell you when I hired your firm? Margaret's jaw tightened. That you wanted something different. Different from what? From your existing properties. And what are you showing me? Margaret looked down at the renderings. Variations on a theme. Exactly. Nathan stood, gathered the renderings, and handed them back to her. Start over, and this time listen to Miss Bennett. She's the only person in this room who actually understands the assignment. Margaret's face flushed red. Mr. Hale, with all due respect, start over, Nathan repeated. You have 1 week. He walked out of the conference room. Claire sat frozen in her chair, very aware that 7 pairs of eyes were now fixed on her with varying degrees of hostility. Well, Angela said into the silence, welcome to the team, Claire. The meeting disbanded quickly after that. Claire gathered her things and fled to the hallway, where she found Nathan waiting by the elevator. That was brutal, she said. That was necessary. The elevator doors opened and he stepped inside. You were right. They weren't listening. You could have said that without humiliating her. I tried. 3 times over the past month. Nathan pressed the button for the 37th floor. Margaret has been designing restaurants for 15 years. She knows what works. What she doesn't know is how to design something that doesn't work the way everything else does. So you embarrassed her in front of her team. I showed her that you have authority. If I'd contradicted her privately, she would have dismissed you the moment I left the room. Nathan glanced at Claire. This way, she knows you speak for me. I don't want to speak for you. Too bad. That's the job. The elevator opened onto the 37th floor. Nathan led her down the hallway to a door she hadn't seen before. What's this? Claire asked. Your office. He opened the door onto a space that made her apartment look like a closet, floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk that could seat 8, shelves already stocked with design books and samples, a drafting table in the corner. This is too much, Claire said. It's what you need. Nathan walked to the desk, pulled out a laptop and opened it. Angela will get you set up with credentials and contacts. The design team reports to you now. So does the chef once we hire one. If you need anything, ask. If something isn't working, fix it. If someone gives you trouble, tell you and you'll crush them? Nathan almost smiled. Tell me and we'll discuss options. I'm trying to be less... He paused. What did you call it? Computerized? Calculating. Right. Less that. Claire walked to the window, looked out at the city sprawling below. I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, you do. You just don't trust yourself yet. Do you trust me? I'm giving you an office and firing design firms based on your opinion, Nathan said. What do you think? She turned to face him. I think you're insane. Probably. He headed for the door. Staff meeting at 3. Angela will send you the calendar. And Claire? Yeah? Don't apologize in meetings. Not to Margaret. Not to anyone. You were right. Own it. He left her standing in an office she didn't deserve with a job she wasn't qualified for, and expectations she had no idea how to meet. Claire sat down at the enormous desk, opened the laptop, and stared at the login screen. Then she started working. The first week was a disaster in slow motion. Margaret's team came back with new renderings that were marginally better but still wrong. The chef Nathan had wanted turned down the position for a restaurant in Los Angeles. A contractor they'd lined up for construction declared bankruptcy. And through it all, Nathan remained infuriatingly calm, solving each problem with the emotional investment of someone ordering coffee. Claire, meanwhile, felt like she was drowning. She spent hours in meetings where people used words she had to look up later. She reviewed budgets that made her dizzy. She gave feedback on design elements she barely understood, faking confidence while her stomach churned. And every evening, she stayed late in her office, trying to teach herself everything she should have known before accepting this job. It was almost 8 when Nathan knocked on her open door one Thursday night. You're still here, he said. Claire looked up from the stack of fabric samples scattered across her desk. So are you. I'm always here. You're supposed to have work-life balance. Do you have that? No, but I'm a bad example. He stepped into the office, hands in his pockets. What are you working on? Upholstery options. Margaret's team sent over samples, but none of them feel right. Nathan picked up one of the swatches, a deep blue velvet. What's wrong with this? It's too formal, too precious. People will be afraid to sit on it. Then tell them to send different options. I did. 3 times. This is what they keep sending. Nathan studied her face. You look exhausted. Thanks. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? Claire tried to remember. Tuesday? It's Thursday. Then Tuesday. Nathan set down the fabric swatch. Go home. I need to finish. Go home, Claire. The upholstery can wait. But Margaret needs an answer by tomorrow. Then Margaret will wait too. He pulled out his phone, typed something. I'm having my driver take you home, and you're not coming in tomorrow. What? No, I can't just... You can, and you will. You're running yourself into the ground, and it's been 1 week. Nathan's voice was firm, but not unkind. This is a marathon, not a sprint. If you burn out now, the whole project suffers. I'm fine. You're not, and you're too stubborn to admit it. He gestured to the door. Cars waiting downstairs. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to prove she could handle this, but the truth was, she was so tired her hands were shaking. Okay, she said quietly. Good. And Claire? Yeah? You're doing well. Better than I expected, actually. He paused. But you need to learn when to stop. Like you? No, better than me. The next morning, Claire woke up in her own bed for the first time all week and felt guilty about it. She checked her phone. No messages from Nathan, no emergencies, nothing that required her immediate attention. At noon, there was a knock on her door. She opened it to find a delivery guy with a paper bag. Claire Bennett? That's me. He handed her the bag and left. Inside was lunch from a place she'd mentioned once in passing to Angela, sandwiches from a deli near her old apartment, and a note in handwriting she recognized. Take the day. See you Monday. N.H. Claire sat on her couch, eating the sandwich, and tried to remember the last time anyone had noticed she was struggling before she said anything. She couldn't. The second week was better. Marginal improvements became actual progress. Margaret's team started listening, or at least pretending to. They found a location that Claire actually liked. A corner building in the West Village with good light and the right proportions. Not too big, not too small. The kind of place that felt lived in even when empty. Nathan approved the lease without hesitation, and suddenly Haven was real. Not just sketches and fabric samples, but an actual space with an actual address. Claire stood in the empty restaurant on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Nathan beside her, both of them looking at bare walls and concrete floors. "What do you see?" Nathan asked. Claire closed her eyes, let herself imagine it. Tables that don't match, chairs you sink into, lighting that's warm, not harsh, plants everywhere. Real ones, not decorative. She opened her eyes. A fireplace. 2 of them, maybe. Places where people can curl up and feel safe. Safe from what? From everything outside. She turned to him. From expectations. From judgment. From the pressure to perform or impress or be anything other than themselves. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "My son would like this," he said finally. "When do I get to meet him?" The question surprised them both. Nathan's expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. "Why?" "Because he's the reason we're doing this, and because I want to know if I'm getting it right." "You are." "You don't know that." "I trust your instincts." "But you don't trust me with your son?" The words came out sharper than Claire intended. Nathan's jaw tightened. "That's not what I said." "It's what you meant." "You don't know what I meant." They stared at each other in the empty space, rain drumming against the windows. "You're right," Claire said finally. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize for calling me out." Nathan walked to one of the windows, looked out at the street. "I'm protective of him, for good reasons." "I'm sure you are." "His mother died when he was 2. The words fell like stones. Claire's breath caught. "Nathan, You didn't know. How could you?" He didn't turn around. "Car accident. She was on her way home from the hospital. We'd just found out she was sick. Cancer, stage 4. They gave her 6 months." His voice was eerily calm. "She didn't make it 6 hours." Claire didn't know what to say. Nothing felt adequate. "So yes," Nathan continued, "I'm protective, because he's all I have left, and because I've already failed him once." "You didn't fail him. I'm building him a restaurant instead of learning how to talk to him. That's failure." "No," Claire said. "That's trying." Nathan finally turned to face her, and for the first time since she'd met him, his control was visibly cracking. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Do what?" "Any of it. Be a father. Build something warm. Let people in." He gestured to the empty space around them. "I can buy buildings and hire teams and manage budgets, but making my son feel safe? Making him laugh? That's..." His voice broke slightly. "I don't have a spreadsheet for that." Claire crossed the space between them. "Then stop trying to calculate it," she said. "Stop treating it like a problem to solve. Just be with him. That's all he needs." "You don't know him." "No. But I know what it feels like to be afraid of disappointing someone. And I know it doesn't get better until that person shows you it's okay to fail." Nathan looked at her, something raw in his expression. "How do I do that?" "You start by forgiving yourself," Claire said quietly, "for not being perfect, for not having all the answers, for being human." "I don't know if I can." "Then let me help you." The words hung between them, meaning more than either of them was ready to acknowledge. Nathan's phone buzzed. He ignored it. "Okay," he said. "Okay?" "Okay, you can meet him this weekend, if you want." Claire's heart did something complicated. "I'd like that." "Fair warning, he's shy, and probably won't talk to you, and definitely won't trust you." "Sounds like his father." Nathan almost smiled. "Yeah, sounds about right." Saturday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of November day that made New York feel smaller, quieter. Claire stood outside Nathan's apartment building in the Upper East Side, clutching a bag of art supplies she'd bought at a store in Chelsea, and wondering if this was the worst idea she'd ever had. The doorman let her up without question. Apparently Nathan had already called ahead. The elevator ride to the penthouse took forever. When the doors finally opened directly into Nathan's foyer, he was waiting there, dressed in jeans and a sweater that made him look different, younger, almost approachable. "You came," he said. "You invited me." I know, I just wasn't sure you'd actually show up. Claire held up the bag. I brought supplies for projects, if he's interested. Projects? Things to make, build. I thought maybe... She stopped, suddenly feeling foolish. I don't know. It seemed better than just sitting around. Nathan looked at the bag for a long moment, then nodded. Come in. The apartment was massive, all clean lines and expensive furniture that looked like no one was allowed to touch it. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. Abstract art hung on walls. Everything was perfectly arranged, perfectly maintained, perfectly sterile. This is where you live? Claire asked. Yes? Why? It looks like a hotel. Nathan's jaw tightened slightly. I like things organized. There's organized, and then there's afraid of mess. Claire walked slowly through the living room, taking it in. Where does your son play? His room. Just his room? And the playroom. You have a playroom that's separate from his bedroom? Yes. Claire turned to look at him. Nathan, this place is huge. Why does he have to stay in 2 rooms? He doesn't have to. He just... Nathan stopped. He prefers it. The rest of the apartment makes him nervous. I wonder why. The words came out before Claire could stop them. Nathan's expression went carefully blank. I should get him, he said. He disappeared down a hallway, leaving Claire standing alone in the museum that apparently passed for a home. She wandered to the windows, looked down at the park below. Bare trees, a few joggers, the reservoir catching the flat light. He doesn't want to come out. Claire turned. Nathan stood in the hallway entrance, hands in his pockets, looking more uncomfortable than she'd ever seen him. That's okay, she said. No, it's not. I told him someone was coming to visit. He said he didn't want to meet anyone new. Then don't make him. I'm not making him. I'm encouraging him. By forcing him to come out of his room? I'm not forcing... Nathan stopped, ran a hand through his hair. This was a bad idea. Probably, Claire agreed, but I'm already here. So maybe let me try. Try what? Talking to him. Without you standing there like this is a business negotiation. Nathan looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Claire's expression stopped him. Fine, he said. Down the hall, 3rd door on the right. His name is Ethan. Claire walked past him, down a hallway lined with more expensive art, and stopped at the 3rd door. It was covered in stickers, dinosaurs, spaceships, cartoon characters, the first sign of actual life she'd seen in this place. She knocked softly. No answer. Ethan? My name is Claire. I'm working with your dad on a project. She paused. I brought some art stuff. If you want to see it, I'll be in the living room. If you don't, that's okay too. Silence. Claire walked back to the living room where Nathan was pacing near the windows. He didn't come out, he said. Not yet. He's not going to. Maybe not. Claire set the bag down on the coffee table, started pulling out supplies. Construction paper, markers, glue, scissors, pipe cleaners, googly eyes. Or maybe he will. This is pointless. Then you can say you told me so later. Claire sat down on the floor. The actual floor, not the furniture, and spread everything out. In the meantime, I'm going to make something. On my floor? Yep. Nathan stared at her like she'd suggested burning the place down. There's a perfectly good table right there. Tables are for eating, floors are for creating. Claire picked up a piece of blue construction paper, started folding it. You should try it sometime. I'm not getting on the floor. Suit yourself. She worked in silence, aware of Nathan watching her like she was some kind of strange animal he'd never encountered before. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Claire made a paper boat, then a crane, then something that was supposed to be a dragon but looked more like a deformed turtle. Behind her, she heard soft footsteps. Claire didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge them, just kept folding. What are you making? The voice was small, uncertain. I'm not sure yet, Claire said. It started as a dragon, but now I think it might be a dinosaur, or maybe an alien. What do you think? A pause, then, it looks weird. Yeah, it does. But weird can be good, right? Ethan moved into her peripheral vision, a small boy with dark hair like his father's and eyes that were too cautious for 7 years old. He was wearing pajamas, even though it was almost noon. Can I see? He asked. Sure. Claire handed him the paper creature. You can have it if you want. I'll make another one. Ethan examined it carefully, turning it over in his hands. It's not very good. Nope, I'm terrible at origami, but I like doing it anyway. Why? Because it's fun to make things, even when they turn out wrong. Ethan sat down on the floor across from her, still holding the paper dragon dinosaur alien. My dad doesn't like things that turn out wrong. Claire glanced up at Nathan, who stood frozen by the windows, watching. Well, she said carefully, maybe your dad is learning that wrong can be interesting. Dad doesn't learn things. He already knows everything. Nobody knows everything. He does. Ethan picked up a marker, examined it. He says mistakes are expensive. What does that mean? I don't know. But he says it a lot. Claire felt something tighten in her chest. She looked at Nathan again, saw his expression, carefully controlled, but there was pain underneath it. Can I tell you a secret? Claire said to Ethan. He nodded. I make mistakes every single day, big ones. And you know what? The world doesn't end. I just try to fix them or learn from them or sometimes just laugh about them. Do you get in trouble? Sometimes, but usually not, because most mistakes aren't that serious. Ethan was quiet for a moment, still holding the marker. Then, I spilled juice on the carpet last week. Dad said it was okay, but Maria spent 2 hours cleaning it. Who's Maria? She takes care of me when Dad's at work. Ethan's voice dropped. Which is always. Nathan made a sound, almost like he'd been hit. Claire kept her eyes on Ethan. Well, I bet Maria wasn't mad, and I bet your dad wasn't either. Juice spills. It happens. But it costs money to clean. So? Money's for using, for fixing things, for taking care of people. Claire picked up another piece of paper. Want to make something with me? Ethan looked at her, then at the supplies, then at his father. Is it okay? Of course it's okay, Nathan said, his voice rougher than usual. Even if I mess up? Even if you mess up. Ethan didn't look convinced, but he picked up a piece of red construction paper and started folding it. His movements were careful, precise, like he was taking a test. You don't have to be perfect, Claire said gently. It's just paper. If it doesn't work, we'll use another piece. But we'll waste it. That's what paper is for, using and wasting and trying again. They worked in silence for a while. Ethan made a paper airplane that flew crooked. Claire made a hat that was too small for anyone's head. Nathan eventually sat down on the couch, not the floor, but closer than Claire expected, and watched. After 20 minutes, Ethan spoke again. Are you my dad's girlfriend? Claire nearly dropped the scissors. What? No, I work for him. Oh, Ethan seemed to consider this. He doesn't usually bring people from work here. Well, I'm helping him with a special project, a restaurant. I know, Haven. Ethan's voice was soft. He says it's for me. It is, but I don't want a restaurant. Claire looked up at him. What do you want? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, gluing googly eyes onto something that might have been a monster. I just want him to stay home sometimes, he said finally. The words hung in the air. Claire felt Nathan go very still on the couch. That's fair, Claire said quietly. Have you told him that? No. Why not? Because he's busy and important, and I don't want to bother him. Ethan, Nathan's voice was strained. You're not a bother. You're always on the phone. I know, but that doesn't mean... And you miss dinner a lot. I'm working on that. You've been working on it for a year. Ethan still wasn't looking at his father. Maria says you're doing your best, but I think maybe your best isn't very good. The bluntness of it made Claire wince. Nathan stood up abruptly, walked to the windows, his back to both of them. You're right, he said after a long moment. My best hasn't been good enough. Ethan finally looked up, surprised. I'm trying to fix that, Nathan continued, still facing the window. That's part of why I'm building Haven, so I have a reason to slow down, to be present, to... His voice caught slightly. To be the dad you deserve instead of the one you got. I don't want Haven, Ethan said. I just want you. Nathan turned around and Claire saw his eyes were wet. I know, he said quietly. I'm sorry it took me this long to hear that. He crossed the room, sat down on the floor with them, actually sat on the floor in his expensive apartment, and picked up a piece of paper. "Will you show me how to make something?" he asked Ethan. Ethan stared at him. "You want to make crafts?" "If you'll teach me." "But you don't do stuff like this." "Maybe I should start." Ethan handed him a piece of green paper and some glue, and Claire watched as Nathan Hale, billionaire, perfectionist, man who calculated everything, attempted to make a paper frog with his 7-year-old son. It was terrible. The frog looked more like a blob. The glue went everywhere. At one point, Nathan got frustrated and started to set it aside, but Ethan stopped him. "You have to finish it," Ethan said, "even if it's bad." "Why?" "Because that's what you always tell me. Finish what you start." Nathan looked at the deformed paper frog, then at his son, and something in his face cracked open. "You're right," he said. "Let's finish it." They worked together for another hour. The frog never improved. Claire made a chain of paper dolls that fell apart. Ethan created an entire family of monsters with mismatched eyes and wonky limbs. And slowly, gradually, the apartment that had felt like a museum began to feel like a place where people actually lived. When Claire finally left that afternoon, Nathan walked her to the elevator. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For showing me how to sit on the floor." Claire smiled. "It's easier than it looks." "Not for me." Nathan glanced back toward the apartment. "I've spent 7 years trying to be perfect for him, and all he wanted was for me to be messy." "It's not too late, isn't it?" "No." Claire pressed the elevator button. "But you have to actually change, not just say you will. Actually do it." "I don't know how." "Start small. Have dinner with him. Turn off your phone. Make terrible crafts." The elevator doors opened. "Be present, Nathan. That's all he needs." "What about Haven?" "What about it?" "Is it still worth building if what he really wants is just time?" Claire stepped into the elevator, held the door. "Build it anyway. Not because you think it'll fix things, but because it's a promise. A reminder of who you're trying to become." Nathan nodded slowly. "Will you help me keep that promise? That's what you're paying me for." "No." His expression was serious. "That's what I'm asking you as a friend." The words settled between them, unexpected and weighty. "Okay," Claire said. "As a friend." The doors closed, and she rode down alone, thinking about the small boy in pajamas and the father who was finally learning to fail. The weeks that followed were different. Nathan still worked brutal hours, but he started coming home for dinner. Not every night, board meetings and conference calls still demanded his attention, but enough that Ethan stopped looking surprised when his father walked through the door before bedtime. Claire saw the changes in small ways. Nathan mentioned a school play he couldn't miss. He asked her to schedule meetings around a parent-teacher conference. Once, he showed up to a site visit with marker on his sleeve and didn't bother explaining it. And Haven started to take shape. The space in the West Village transformed slowly. Walls came down, new ones went up. The fireplace Claire had imagined became 2 fireplaces, one at each end of the main dining room. The lighting designer, a woman named Sarah, who actually listened, installed fixtures that cast warm pools of light instead of harsh overhead glare. Margaret's team finally stopped fighting Claire's vision and started enhancing it. The tables didn't match, just like she'd wanted. Some were round, some square, some tucked into corners with cushioned benches. The chairs were mismatched too, collected from estate sales and vintage stores, each one different, each one comfortable. "It looks like someone's eclectic grandmother decorated it," Margaret said one afternoon, surveying the space. "Good," Claire replied. "That wasn't a compliment. I'm taking it as one anyway." They'd hired a chef finally, a woman named Simone who'd worked in Michelin-starred kitchens but wanted to cook food that made people feel at home instead of impressed. Her first menu draft made Claire cry. "It's perfect," she told Simone. It's simple." "That's what makes it perfect. Pot roast, actual pot roast, on a restaurant menu. Your boss is going to hate it, probably, but I'll fight him on it." Except Nathan didn't hate it. He read through the menu, made a few notes about sourcing and pricing, and approved it without argument. "No notes on the concept?" Claire asked, surprised. "It's your concept. I told you I trusted your instincts." "You usually still have opinions." "I do, but I'm learning when to keep them to myself." Nathan set the menu down. "Besides, Ethan liked it. I showed him the draft last night. He said the mac and cheese sounded good. You showed your 7-year-old the menu?" He's the target audience, isn't he? Something warm spread through Claire's chest. Yeah, he is. They were standing in the restaurant space, now recognizable as a restaurant, even with construction still ongoing. It was late afternoon, the sun streaming through the windows, dust motes floating in the air. It's really happening, Claire said. Did you think it wouldn't? Sometimes. When Margaret was being difficult, or the permits got delayed, or I woke up at 3 in the morning convinced I had no idea what I was doing. You always know what you're doing. No, I don't. I just pretend really well. Nathan smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. That's half of business. The other half is following through. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Can I ask you something? Claire said. Always. What happened between you and Ethan's mother? I mean, she stopped, suddenly unsure. You don't have to answer. We were happy, Nathan said quietly. For a while. Then we weren't. Then she got sick, and before we could figure out how to be happy again, she was gone. He walked to one of the windows, looked out at the street. I think we would have made it work, given time. But we didn't get time. I'm sorry. So am I. He turned back to face her. I spent 2 years being angry at the universe for taking her. Then I realized anger wasn't helping Ethan, so I channeled it into work instead. Built more, achieved more, controlled everything I could control because I couldn't control what mattered. And now? Now I'm trying to let go of some of that control. It's harder than it sounds. I've noticed. Nathan almost laughed. You're very patient with me. Not really. I just know what it's like to be scared. Scared of what? Of failing, of being too much or not enough, of trying something new and falling flat. Claire looked around the space. This terrifies me, Nathan. Every single day I wake up convinced I'm about to ruin your investment and disappoint everyone. You won't. You don't know that. I do, actually, because even when you're terrified, you show up, you make decisions, you push back when I'm wrong. That's not someone who fails, that's someone who fights. The words hit harder than Claire expected. She felt her throat tighten. Thank you, she said. For what? For taking a chance on someone who had no business being here. You had every business being here. I just had to make you see it. Nathan checked his watch, frowned. I need to go. Ethan has a soccer game. You're going to a soccer game? I'm trying to. I've missed the last 4. If I miss this one, he said he's quitting the team. He didn't. He did. Very matter-of-factly. Said if I don't care enough to watch, he doesn't care enough to play. Nathan grabbed his coat from where he'd draped it over a sawhorse. 7 years old, and he's already calling me out. Wonder where he learned that. Probably from you. He headed for the door, then stopped. Do you want to come? To the soccer game? Ethan asked if you would. I told him you were probably busy. Claire's heart did something complicated. I'm not busy. Then come. They took a cab to a field in Brooklyn where a dozen 7-year-olds ran around chasing a ball with varying degrees of success. Ethan spotted them immediately, his face lighting up in a way Claire hadn't seen before. He waved. Nathan waved back. He's happy, Claire said. He's shocked I actually showed up. Nathan's voice was tight. I've been a terrible father. You've been a struggling father. There's a difference. They sat on the cold metal bleachers and watched the game. Ethan wasn't particularly good. He spent most of the time running in the wrong direction. But every time he looked over at them, Nathan clapped and shouted encouragement. At halftime, Ethan ran over. Did you see me almost score? He asked breathlessly. Almost? Nathan raised an eyebrow. You were at least 15 feet from the goal. But I was heading in the right direction. Fair point. Ethan looked at Claire. Are you having fun? The most fun, Claire said honestly. Even though we're losing really bad. Even though. Cool. Ethan grinned, then ran back to his team. Nathan watched him go, something unreadable on his face. What? Claire asked. I've missed so much, he said quietly. All those games, all those moments. I can't get them back. No, but you can be here for the ones ahead. What if it's too late? What if he's already... He's not. Look at him. Claire pointed to where Ethan was laughing with his teammates. He's happy you're here. That's all that matters. They stayed for the whole game. Ethan's team lost spectacularly. Nathan bought him ice cream afterward anyway. And the three of them sat in a diner booth while Ethan talked nonstop about soccer strategy he didn't understand, and players he admired and how his coach said he was getting better at defense. Claire watched Nathan listen, really listen, not just nod while thinking about work, and felt something shift inside her chest. This was what Haven was supposed to be. Not just a restaurant, but a feeling. The feeling of being present, of showing up, of caring more about the person across from you than the perfect execution of every detail. Later that night, after Nathan had dropped Claire at her apartment and driven home with Ethan, she sat on her couch and realized she was in trouble. Somewhere between the paper crafts and the soccer game, and the way Nathan's face changed when his son laughed, she'd stopped seeing him as just her boss. She'd started seeing him as someone who mattered, someone she cared about, someone she might be falling for. The realization scared her more than any design decision or budget meeting ever had. The next morning, she showed up at the office determined to push those feelings down and focus on work. But Nathan was already in her office, looking at fabric samples. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Morning, what are you doing?" "Trying to understand why you rejected Margaret's upholstery options." He held up a swatch. "This one seems fine." "It's too stiff. People won't want to sink into it." "How do you know?" "I just do." Nathan studied her face. "Are you okay?" "Fine." "Why? You seem distracted." "I'm not." "Claire." She met his eyes and felt that shift again, the one that made her pulse stutter. "I'm fine," she repeated. "Just tired." Nathan didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. "Simone wants to do a tasting next week. Menu final approval before we lock in suppliers." "Okay. I'd like you and Ethan to be there." "Ethan? He should taste what we're serving. Make sure it's actually food a kid would eat." Nathan set down the fabric sample. "Plus, he likes you. He asked this morning if you were coming to his next game." Claire's chest tightened. "When is it?" "Saturday. If you're free." "I'll be there." "You don't have to." "I want to." Something passed between them, a look that lasted half a second too long. Nathan broke it first, cleared his throat. "Good. He'll be happy to hear that." He headed for the door, then paused. "Claire." "Yeah?" "Thank you for yesterday, for—" He seemed to struggle with the words. "For helping me see him." "You're his father. You already see him." "No, I look at him. You taught me how to actually see." Nathan's voice was quieter than usual. "That matters." He left before she could respond. Claire sat at her desk for a long time, staring at the fabric samples without really seeing them, and tried to convince herself she wasn't falling for her boss. She failed. The tasting happened the following Tuesday in Haven's nearly finished kitchen. Simone had prepared 7 dishes, comfort food elevated just enough to feel special without losing its soul. Ethan showed up in his school uniform, shy at first, but Simone won him over by letting him taste things directly from the pan and asking his opinion like it mattered. "Too much salt?" she asked after he tried the pot roast. Ethan considered it seriously. "Maybe a little, but it's still really good." Simone made a note. "I'll adjust." "Thank you, chef." Ethan beamed. Nathan sat at the counter watching his son interact with someone who treated him like an equal, and Claire saw his expression soften in a way she'd never witnessed. "He's happy," she said quietly, sitting down beside Nathan. "He is." Nathan's voice was thick. "I forgot what that looked like." "Don't forget again." "I'm trying not to." They tasted every dish. The pot roast that Ethan had critiqued. Roasted chicken with herbs that tasted like someone's grandmother had made it. Mac and cheese that was somehow both sophisticated and exactly what a 7-year-old wanted. Apple pie that made Nathan actually close his eyes and smile. "It's perfect," Claire said to Simone. "All of it." "You're sure?" "The chicken might need—" "It's perfect," Nathan interrupted. "Don't change anything." Simone looked between them, surprised. "Really?" "Really." Nathan stood up. "Lock in the suppliers. This is the menu." After Simone left and Ethan was distracted by his phone in the corner booth, Nathan turned to Claire. "I need to tell you something," he said. Her heart jumped. "Okay." "The board is asking questions about Haven, about the budget, the timeline, the concept." He paused. "About you." "What kind of questions?" "The kind that implies they think I'm making a mistake." that I'm investing in something too risky, that I hired someone unqualified for a critical position. Claire felt cold. What did you tell them? That they're right. The words hit like a slap. What? You are unqualified. By traditional metrics, no degree, no experience, no industry connections. Nathan's gaze was steady. And you're still the best decision I've made in years. Nathan, they want me to replace you. Bring in someone with credentials, someone safe. His jaw tightened. I told them no. Maybe you shouldn't have. Why? Because they're right. I am unqualified. And if this fails, it won't fail. You don't know that. I know you. Nathan stepped closer. I know you care about this place more than anyone I could hire. I know you understand what it's supposed to be. I know you'll fight for it even when it's hard. He paused. I know I trust you more than I've trusted anyone in a long time. Claire's breath caught. This isn't just about the restaurant, is it? No. The admission hung between them. Nathan, we can't… I know. His voice was rough. You work for me. It's inappropriate. It's complicated. It's probably a disaster waiting to happen. Then why are you telling me? Because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Because you're the first person in years who's made me want to be better. Not just professionally. As a person. As a father. As… He stopped. As what? As someone worthy of being cared about. Claire's heart was pounding. I do care about you. I know, that's the problem. Nathan stepped back. The board wants an answer by Friday. Either I replace you or I convince them this is worth the risk. And if you can't convince them, then they'll push me out. Vote me into a minority position. Take control of the project. His expression hardened. Take control of everything. Over one restaurant? Over the precedent. If I defy them on this, they'll see it as weakness. An emotional decision clouding my judgment. Nathan's voice was bitter. They're not entirely wrong. So what are you going to do? I don't know yet. He looked at her, and Claire saw fear underneath the control. But I'm not losing you. Not to the board. Not to optics. Not to… He stopped himself. Not to what? Not to my own cowardice. Across the room, Ethan looked up from his phone. Dad, can we go home? I have homework. Yeah, buddy. Give me 1 minute. Nathan turned back to Claire, lowered his voice. Friday. I'll have an answer by Friday. Until then, we keep working. We finish this, and we… We what? We figure out what the hell we're doing. He walked away to collect his son, and Claire stood alone in the almost finished restaurant, surrounded by mismatched furniture and warm lighting, and wondered how she'd let herself fall for someone who might have to choose between her and everything else. Friday came too fast. Claire spent the week trying to focus on work, finalizing the wine list, approving the last of the furniture deliveries, coordinating with the contractor on punch list items. But her mind kept circling back to Nathan's words. The board. The choice. The way he'd looked at her when he said he wasn't losing her. She hadn't seen him since Tuesday. He'd sent emails, brief and professional, but he hadn't come to the site, hadn't called, hadn't shown up at Ethan's soccer game on Saturday, which Ethan mentioned to her with a resignation that broke her heart. He said he had an important meeting, Ethan told her as they sat on the bleachers. Claire had gone alone, unable to break her promise, even if Nathan had broken his. I'm sure he did, Claire said, knowing it sounded hollow. He always has important meetings. Ethan kicked at the metal seat in front of him. More important than me. That's not true. Then why isn't he here? Claire didn't have an answer for that. Now it was Friday afternoon, and she was standing in Haven's main dining room, watching the installation team hang the last light fixture when Angela called. Mr. Hale needs to see you, Angela said. His office. Now. I'm at the site. Can it wait until… He said now, Claire. Something in Angela's voice made Claire's stomach drop. Is everything okay? Just come, please. The drive to Midtown felt like it took hours. Claire's mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. The board had forced him out. They'd shut down Haven. They'd fired her. All of the above. When she stepped off the elevator onto the 37th floor, Angela was waiting. Conference room, Angela said quietly. He's been in there since 6 this morning. With who? The board. All of them. Angela's expression was carefully neutral, but Claire saw worry underneath it. It's not going well. Claire walked down the hallway, her heels clicking too loudly on the marble floor. Through the glass walls of the conference room, she could see Nathan standing at the head of the table, surrounded by 8 people in expensive suits. His tie was loosened, his sleeves were rolled up. He looked exhausted. She knocked once. Nathan's head snapped up. He said something to the board members, then walked to the door and stepped out into the hallway, closing it behind him. "You came," he said. "Angela said you needed me." "I do." Nathan ran a hand over his face. "I need you to be honest with me." "About what?" "About whether this is worth it." Claire's heart stuttered. "Nathan, they're giving me an ultimatum. Replace you with someone experienced, scale back the concept to something more conventional, and they'll approve the project with minimal oversight." He gestured to the conference room. "Or I can keep you, keep the vision, and they'll call for a vote of no confidence, force me into a minority position in my own company." "Then replace me." "What?" "Replace me. It's the obvious choice. One restaurant isn't worth losing everything you've built." Nathan stared at her. "You think I'm here debating the value of a restaurant? Aren't you?" "No. I'm debating whether I'm brave enough to choose what matters over what's expected." He stepped closer. "Haven isn't just a restaurant, Claire. It's a promise to my son that I'm trying to be different. It's proof that I can build something warm instead of something perfect. He stopped. "It's the first thing in years that's made me feel like I'm doing something right." "You'll lose the company." "Maybe. Or maybe I'll lose myself trying to hold on to it." Nathan's voice was rough. "I've spent 7 years sacrificing everything for control. My time with Ethan, my ability to connect with people, He looked at her. "Any chance at having something real with someone who matters." Claire's breath caught. "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Don't make me the reason you destroy everything." "You're not the reason. You're the catalyst." Nathan's gaze was intense. "You made me see what I was missing, what I was running from, He stopped himself. "What?" "What I want." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. "Nathan, we can't." Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "Even if you keep me on the project, we can't. This isn't—" "I know." He stepped back. "I know it's complicated. I know it's inappropriate. I know every reason why this is a terrible idea." "Then why are you telling me?" "Because in about 10 minutes, I'm going back in that room and making a decision that will change everything. And I need to know—" His voice caught. "I need to know if I'm doing this alone." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "What are you asking me?" "I'm asking if you feel it too, this thing between us. I'm asking if I'm crazy for thinking there might be something worth fighting for here." Nathan's control was cracking. "I'm asking if you'll still be there when the dust settles. You're my boss." "I know. This could ruin both of us." "I know. And you're asking anyway?" "Yes." Nathan's expression was raw. "Because I'm tired of pretending I don't care. I'm tired of calculating every decision and controlling every variable. I'm tired of being alone." Claire looked at him, really looked. At the man who'd set a trap for her in a restaurant and turned her life upside down. The man who was learning to sit on floors and make paper frogs. The man who was finally choosing something messy and imperfect over something safe. "I feel it," she said quietly. Nathan's expression shifted. "You do?" "Of course I do. I've been trying not to for weeks." Claire brushed at her eyes, frustrated. "But this is insane, Nathan. You're about to lose control of your company. This is the worst possible time to what? To admit I care about someone? To prioritize something other than business?" Nathan shook his head. "Maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe I've been waiting for the right time my whole life, and there is no right time. There's just this. Now. The choice to be honest instead of strategic." "What about Ethan?" The question stopped him. "What about him?" Nathan asked. "Have you thought about how this affects him? If this becomes something and it doesn't work out?" Claire's voice was shaking. "He's already attached to me. If I leave, if things end badly, then we'll deal with it together." Nathan's jaw was set. "I can't protect him from everything, Claire. I can't control every outcome. All I can do is try to be honest with him. And right now, honestly, you make both of us happier than we've been in years." That's not fair. None of this is fair, but it's real. Through the glass wall, one of the board members was checking his watch, looking impatient. You need to go back in there, Claire said. I need an answer first. To what? Will you stay? Regardless of what happens in that room, will you see this through? Haven, Ethan, me? Nathan's voice dropped. All of it? Claire thought about walking away, about protecting herself, protecting Ethan, protecting Nathan from a decision he might regret. It would be the smart choice, the safe choice. But she'd already learned that safe didn't mean right. Yes, she said. I'll stay. Nathan's expression broke open with something that looked like relief and terror mixed together. Okay, he said. Okay. He turned back to the conference room, straightened his tie, and walked inside. Claire watched through the glass as he took his place at the head of the table and started speaking. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see the reactions. The head shakes, the crossed arms, the man at the far end who stood up and pointed at Nathan, clearly angry. Nathan remained calm. He pulled out his phone, showed them something on the screen, spoke some more. The angry man sat down but didn't uncross his arms. 20 minutes later, Nathan walked out. Alone. His face was unreadable. Well? Claire asked. They voted. And? 4-4. Tie. Nathan loosened his tie completely, pulled it off. Which means nothing changes. I keep majority control. They can't force me out. Relief flooded through Claire. That's good, right? In theory. Nathan walked past her toward his office. In practice, I just burned half my relationships with the board. They'll fight me on everything now. Every decision, every investment, He stopped. It doesn't matter. I made my choice. Claire followed him into his office. He went straight to the windows, stared out at the city. You chose the restaurant, she said. I chose you. The words landed heavy. Claire felt her chest tighten. Nathan, I know what you're going to say, that I shouldn't have, that it's too much pressure, that you didn't ask for this. He turned to face her. But it's the truth. They gave me an ultimatum, and I chose you. Not just as the creative director, as... He struggled with the words. As someone who matters. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're honest when lying would be easier. I know you see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. I know you made my son laugh for the first time in months. I know... His voice caught. I know I haven't felt this terrified of losing something in 7 years. Claire crossed the space between them. You're not going to lose me. How do you know? Because I'm terrified too, and I'm still here. They stood close enough that Claire could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way his carefully maintained control was finally crumbling. I don't know how to do this, Nathan said quietly. Caring about someone without calculating the cost. Being vulnerable without a contingency plan. Just feeling something without trying to manage it. Then we'll figure it out together. What if I'm terrible at it? You probably will be, Claire almost smiled. But you're already better than you think. Nathan reached up, hesitated, then gently touched her face. His hand was shaking slightly. I haven't done this since... He stopped. I know. And we work together. And there's Ethan to think about, and 1,000 reasons why this is complicated. I know, Claire said again, but I want to try anyway. So do I. He kissed her then, soft and uncertain, like he was afraid she might disappear. Claire leaned into it, felt 7 years of walls starting to crack, felt her own fear mixing with something that might be hope. When they pulled apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. I'm probably going to mess this up, he said. Definitely. And you're okay with that? No, but I'm willing to work through it. He almost laughed. You're very practical for someone who just kissed her boss. One of us has to be. Nathan's phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. You should check that, Claire said. I should, but I don't want to. He pulled back reluctantly, looked at the screen. His expression hardened. It's Richard. The board member who was yelling? Yes. He's requesting an emergency meeting next Friday. Nathan's jaw tightened. He's not done fighting this. What does that mean? It means he's going to spend the next week gathering support, finding board members who will change their vote. building a case for why I'm unfit to lead. Nathan set the phone down. It means I bought us 1 week, not a victory. Claire felt cold. What happens if he succeeds? Then I lose majority control. They install someone else as CEO. I become a figurehead in my own company. His voice was bitter. Everything I built becomes someone else's to run. Over a restaurant and a relationship? Over the precedent. They'll frame it as me making emotional decisions. Letting personal attachments cloud my judgment. Proof that I'm no longer capable of putting the company first. Nathan walked to his desk, braced his hands against it. And they won't be entirely wrong. So what do we do? I don't know. He looked up at her. For the first time in my career, I genuinely don't know the right move. Claire's phone rang. She glanced at it. Simone. I need to take this, she said. It's the chef. Nathan nodded. Claire stepped into the hallway, answered. Claire, we have a problem, Simone said without preamble. The hood system installation is delayed. 3 weeks, maybe more, which means we can't do the final health inspection, which means we can't open on schedule. Exactly. I'm sorry. The contractor swears it's not their fault, something about supply chain issues, but it's fine. We'll figure it out. Claire's mind was already racing. Can we expedite the parts? Pay extra for rush shipping? I already asked. They're coming from Germany. There's no expediting international freight. Okay. What if we source from somewhere else? I checked. This system was custom designed for our kitchen layout. We can't just swap it out. Claire closed her eyes. So we're stuck. Unless you want to redesign the entire kitchen to accommodate a different hood system. But that would take longer than 3 weeks and cost a fortune. I know. Claire leaned against the wall. Let me talk to Nathan. We'll figure something out. She ended the call and walked back into the office. Nathan was on his own phone, but he hung up when he saw her face. What's wrong? The hood system is delayed, 3 weeks minimum. We can't open on time. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Can we work around it? Not without redesigning the kitchen or finding a different system. Both options take longer and cost more than just waiting. So we delay the opening, which means we miss the holiday season. All that revenue we projected, the momentum we planned to build. Claire felt panic rising. Richard is going to use this as evidence that the project is failing. Probably. You don't seem concerned. I'm concerned. I'm just not surprised. Nathan sat down on the edge of his desk. Every project has setbacks. This is just the first one. The first major one. Right when your board is looking for reasons to push you out. Yes. And you're just, what? Accepting it? No. I'm acknowledging reality. Nathan pulled out his phone again. The hood system is delayed. We can't change that. But we can control how we respond. We can either panic and make rushed decisions, or we can adapt the timeline and use the extra weeks productively. For what? Staff training, menu refinement, marketing buildup. He was already typing notes. We soft open in January instead of December. Make it an event. New year, new concept. Turn the delay into an advantage. Claire stared at him. You're really not panicking. I spent 7 years panicking about everything. It didn't help. Nathan looked up at her. I'm trying something different. Trust the process. Adapt when necessary. Focus on what I can control. When did you get so zen? About 3 weeks ago, when a waitress told me I needed to learn how to spill water without apologizing. He almost smiled. Turns out that applies to more than just water. Claire felt something loosen in her chest. Okay, January opening. I'll call Simone back and... Wait, Nathan stood up. Before you do that, there's something else we need to talk about. What? Us, and how we handle this going forward. Claire's stomach tightened. Okay. The board is watching me now, looking for mistakes, for evidence that I'm compromised. Nathan's voice was careful. Which means we need to be smart about this. Discreet. You want to hide it. I want to protect it. There's a difference. Is there? Claire crossed her arms. Because it sounds like you're already calculating how to manage this, how to control the narrative. I'm trying to make sure we both survive this with our careers intact. Or you're reverting to type, treating this like a business problem to solve instead of... She stopped herself. Instead of what? Instead of something real that doesn't need to be managed. Nathan's expression tightened. It's both, Claire. It can be real and still need to be handled carefully, especially now, with everything in flux. So, what are you suggesting? We pretend nothing happened? Go back to being just professional? No. I'm suggesting we're careful. We don't give Richard ammunition. Nathan stepped closer. I'm not ashamed of this. Of you. But I'm also not stupid enough to hand my enemies exactly what they need to destroy me. And what about Ethan? The question made him pause. What about him? Does he get to know, or is he part of the secret too? I don't... Nathan ran a hand through his hair. I haven't thought that far ahead. Maybe you should, because if this is real, if this is something we're actually doing, he deserves to know. He deserves honesty. He's 7. So, he's not stupid. He'll figure it out eventually. And when he does, how do you think he'll feel knowing we lied to him? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he said finally. Really? Really. I don't want to hide this from him. I don't want to hide it from anyone. He struggled with the words. I don't want to lose everything trying to prove a point. What point? That I'm capable of choosing something for myself. Something that isn't about the company or the bottom line or maintaining control. Nathan's voice was rough. That I'm capable of being human. Claire felt her anger deflate. She crossed to him, took his hand. You are human, she said quietly. Messy and scared and sometimes infuriating, but human. You don't have to prove that to anyone. I feel like I do, especially now. Then prove it by being honest. With the board, with Ethan, with me. Claire squeezed his hand. No more tests, no more strategies, just the truth. Nathan looked at their joined hands. What if the truth cost me everything? Then at least you'll have been honest. That's worth something. Is it worth more than my company? Claire didn't answer right away. She thought about Haven, about Ethan, about the man standing in front of her who was finally learning to let go of control. I don't know, she said finally, but I think you need to figure that out. Because if you choose the company over everything else, we're right back where we started. And I can't, her voice caught. I can't do this if you're not all in. I am all in. Are you? Because it seems like you're already looking for exits, ways to protect yourself, ways to manage the fallout. That's not fair. Isn't it? Claire pulled her hand away. You just asked me to hide this, to be discreet, to help you control the narrative. That's not being all in, Nathan. That's hedging your bets. Nathan's jaw tightened. I'm trying to be realistic. You're trying to have it both ways. Keep the company, keep the control. Keep me in some compartmentalized box where I don't threaten anything important. Claire felt tears building. I won't be that person. I won't be the secret you keep while you figure out if I'm worth the risk. That's not what I'm doing. Then what are you doing? I'm trying not to lose everything. Nathan's control finally snapped. I'm trying to keep my company and my son and you, and I don't know how to do all three without sacrificing something. So yes, I'm being strategic. Yes, I'm trying to manage this. Because the alternative is watching it all fall apart and being powerless to stop it. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. I can't be another thing you manage, Claire said quietly. I've spent my whole life being overlooked and underestimated. I won't do it again, even for you. I'm not... Nathan stopped, took a breath. You're right. I'm sorry. The apology surprised her. I'm trying to control this, he continued, because control is all I've known. But you're right. You deserve better than that. He stepped closer. So here's the truth, unmanaged and unstrategic. I care about you, more than is probably smart, more than I know how to handle, and I'm terrified of screwing this up. So am I. Then we're even. Claire almost smiled. What do we do now? I don't know, but I'm done trying to calculate the right answer. Nathan reached for her hand again. I'm just going to try. Be honest. Make mistakes. Figure it out as we go. Even if it costs you the company? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he said finally. A week ago, I would have said no. Nothing's worth that cost, but now... He looked at her. Now I'm not sure the company is worth losing you. That's not an answer. It's the best I have right now. Claire knew she should walk away, should protect herself from the inevitable moment when Nathan chose business over everything else. But she also knew she wouldn't. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, we'll figure it out, together, messily. She squeezed his hand. But I need you to promise me something. What? No more tests. No more strategies to see if I'll pass or fail. Just honesty, even when it's hard. Nathan nodded slowly. I promise. And you tell Ethan, this weekend, before he hears it from someone else or figures it out on his own. He's 7. I don't even know how to... You'll figure it out. You're his father. Nathan looked terrified, but he nodded again. Okay? Claire's phone rang again. Simone, probably with more problems. But Claire silenced it. I should go, she said. Deal with the hood system crisis. Let you process all this. Claire, she kissed him, quick and soft. We'll be okay, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. How do you know? I don't. But I'm choosing to believe it anyway. She left him standing in his office, surrounded by windows and city views and the wreckage of certainty, and took the elevator down to street level where everything felt both impossibly complicated and startlingly simple. She cared about him. He cared about her. Everything else was just noise. At least that's what she told herself as she headed back to Haven, where real problems waited and strategic solutions wouldn't help. That night, Claire sat in the empty restaurant and made a list of everything that could go wrong. The hood system delay, Richard's continued opposition, Nathan's board turning against him, the relationship falling apart, Ethan getting hurt, Haven failing, all of it. Then she made a second list of everything that could go right. The second list was shorter, but it mattered more. Somewhere across the city, Nathan was probably making his own lists, calculating odds, trying to find the strategic path through chaos. But for the first time in his life, Claire hoped he'd throw the lists away and just trust the fall. Nathan didn't call that weekend like he'd promised. No text about talking to Ethan, no update on the board situation, nothing. By Sunday evening, Claire had convinced herself it was over before it really started. He'd changed his mind, realized the risk was too great, chosen the safer path. She was sitting on her couch, halfway through a pint of ice cream in a truly terrible reality show, when her phone rang. Nathan's name on the screen. She almost didn't answer. Hello? I need you to come over. His voice was tight. Please. Nathan, I told him. I told Ethan, and it... He stopped. Can you just come? Claire was already grabbing her coat. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She made it in 15. The doorman waved her up without question. When the elevator opened, Nathan was standing in the foyer, looking more undone than she'd ever seen him. His hair was a mess. His shirt was wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept. What happened? Claire asked. I told him about us. About you. About... Nathan gestured vaguely. Everything. And he asked if you were going to leave like his mom did. The words hit Claire in the chest. Oh, Nathan. I told him no, that you weren't going anywhere, that this was different. Nathan's voice cracked slightly. And he asked how I knew, how I could promise that when I couldn't promise it about his mom. What did you say? I didn't know what to say. So I told him the truth, that I couldn't promise, that life doesn't work that way, that sometimes people leave even when we don't want them to. Nathan ran his hands over his face, and then he started crying, and I didn't know how to fix it. Where's he now? His room. He won't come out. Claire walked past Nathan toward the hallway. Which door? Claire, you don't have to Which door, Nathan? He pointed to the third door, the one covered in stickers. Claire knocked softly. Ethan, it's Claire. Can I come in? Silence. I'm not going to make you talk if you don't want to. I just want to sit with you for a minute. Is that okay? More silence. Then quietly, okay. Claire opened the door. Ethan's room was the opposite of the rest of the apartment. Colorful, messy, alive. Toys scattered across the floor, drawings taped to the walls, a bed covered in stuffed animals. And in the middle of it all, Ethan sat curled up against his headboard, his face blotchy from crying. Claire sat down on the edge of the bed, not too close. Your dad's pretty worried about you, she said. I don't want to talk to him. Okay. You want to talk to me? Ethan shrugged. He told you about us, Claire said carefully. About how we care about each other. He said you're his girlfriend. Yeah, something like that. Are you going to get married? The question caught Claire off guard. I don't know, we just started. This is all pretty new. My mom died. Ethan's voice was flat. Dad says it was an accident, that she didn't want to leave, but she still left. I know, I'm sorry. I don't remember her very much, just bits, her singing, the way she smelled. Ethan wiped at his face. Dad has pictures, but they don't feel real, like she was someone from a movie. Claire felt her throat tighten. That must be really hard. Dad says she would have loved me, but I don't know that. I just know she's gone and she's never coming back, and now he has you and... Ethan's voice broke. What if you leave too? Ethan, I can't promise I'll never leave. Your dad was right about that. Life it's complicated and unpredictable, and sometimes things don't work out the way we hope. Claire shifted closer. But I can promise that if I ever do leave, it won't be because of you. You're not the reason people go. Sometimes grown-ups we make mistakes, or we grow apart, or we realize we're not right for each other. But that's about us, not about you. But what if Dad gets sad again? Like after Mom? Then we'll be sad together. And we'll figure it out. That's what people do. Ethan looked at her with eyes too old for 7. Do you love him? Claire took a breath. I'm starting to, yeah. Does he love you? I think so, but he's scared, just like you are. Dad doesn't get scared. Everyone gets scared, Ethan. Even dads, especially dads who lost someone they loved and are afraid of losing someone else. Claire reached out, tentative, and Ethan let her take his hand. Your dad cares about you so much. Everything he does, everything he builds, it's all because he wants to give you a good life. Sometimes he just forgets that what you need most is him. Not the stuff, just him. I told him that. Good. Keep telling him. He's learning. Ethan was quiet for a moment. If you stay, can we still do crafts? Absolutely. And you'll come to my games? Everyone I can make. Even if you and Dad break up? The question was so earnest it hurt. Claire squeezed his hand. Even then, you and me were friends. That doesn't change just because things get complicated with your dad. Promise? I promise. Ethan studied her face, looking for cracks in the assurance. Finally, he nodded. Okay. Okay? Okay, you can be Dad's girlfriend, but you have to be nice to him. He acts tough, but he's actually kind of fragile. Claire almost laughed. I'll be nice. And you have to tell me if you're going to leave. Don't just disappear. I won't. I promise. Ethan threw his arms around her then, sudden and fierce. Claire held him, this small person carrying too much worry, and felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just about Nathan anymore. It was about this kid who'd already lost too much and was brave enough to risk caring anyway. When Ethan finally pulled back, his face was less blotchy. Can we go see Dad now? Claire asked. I think he's probably still standing in the hallway freaking out. He freaks out a lot. Yeah, he does. They walked out together. Nathan was exactly where Claire had predicted, pacing the hallway, looking like he was about to wear a hole in the expensive hardwood. He stopped when he saw them. Ethan, he started. Ethan walked straight to him and hugged him. Nathan froze for half a second, then wrapped his arms around his son and held on like he was drowning. I'm sorry, Nathan said quietly. I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to be honest. It's okay, Ethan said into his father's shirt. Claire explained. Nathan looked at Claire over Ethan's head, his expression raw with gratitude. Thank you, he mouthed. Claire nodded. Some conversations didn't need words. After Ethan went back to his room to play, crisis apparently averted in the way only kids could manage, Nathan walked Claire to the elevator. You're good with him, he said. He's a good kid. He is, because of his mom, not because of me. That's not true, isn't it? I've been absent for 2 years. Working instead of parenting, building things instead of being present. Nathan leaned against the wall. You've been in his life for a few weeks, and you already understand him better than I do. That's not... It is. And I'm grateful. But it also scares the hell out of me. Why? Because what happens when you realize I'm not worth the effort? When the mess gets too big and you decide it's easier to leave? Nathan's voice was barely above a whisper. Ethan will lose someone else he cares about, and it'll be my fault for bringing you into his life before I was sure. Claire stepped closer. Nathan, you can't be sure. That's not how this works. You just have to trust that we'll figure it out. I don't know how to trust like that. Then learn. We're both learning. He pulled her into a hug, sudden and tight. Claire leaned into it, felt the tension in his shoulders, the fear he was trying to control. I'm not going anywhere, she said into his shirt. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'm here now. Isn't that enough? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. It has to be. The elevator dinged. Claire pulled back, smoothed her coat. I'll see you tomorrow, she said. At the site, we have the lighting final walkthrough. Right. The restaurant. Nathan almost smiled. I keep forgetting we're actually supposed to be working. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you mix business with whatever this is. Whatever this is, Nathan repeated. That's one way to describe it. You have a better one? He looked at her for a long moment. Not yet, but I'm working on it. The next day, Claire showed up at Haven to find chaos. The lighting installation had gone wrong somehow. Fixtures in the wrong places, wiring issues, something about voltage that the contractor tried to explain but made no sense. Margaret's team was there, looking stressed. The contractor was on the phone, arguing with someone. Simone was in the kitchen, testing equipment and muttering about timelines. And in the middle of it all, Nathan stood with his sleeves rolled up, looking at electrical schematics like he could solve the problem through sheer force of will. Please tell me this is fixable, Claire said. Nathan looked up. Define fixable. We can open in January. Probably, but it's going to cost... He checked his phone. About $40,000 more than budgeted. Claire felt dizzy. Nathan, I'm sorry. I approved these fixtures. If I'd paid more attention to the technical specs, this isn't your fault. The contractor should have caught this during the planning phase. They're eating most of the cost. Nathan set down the schematics. We'll cover the rest. It's fine. It's $40,000. It's a rounding error compared to what we've already invested. He touched her arm briefly. Don't spiral. We'll handle it. But Claire was spiraling because this was another setback, another thing Richard could point to as evidence of poor management. Another reason for the board to question Nathan's judgment. As if summoned by her thoughts, Nathan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. Richard, he said, I need to take this. He walked outside. Through the windows, Claire could see him pacing, his free hand gesturing sharply. The conversation lasted 5 minutes. When he came back inside, his face was carefully blank. He knows about the delays, Nathan said. Both of them. The hood system, and now this. How? Someone on the team is feeding him information, probably Margaret. Nathan's voice was cold. He's calling an emergency board meeting. This Friday. He's pushing for the vote again. Claire felt the world tilt. What does that mean? It means I have 4 days to convince the board that Haven is still viable, that I'm still fit to lead, that... He stopped. That I didn't just destroy everything for a restaurant and a relationship. Nathan, I need to go, prepare, figure out how to spin this. He was already heading for the door. Can you handle things here? Yeah, but... I'll call you tonight. He left before Claire could respond. She stood in the half-finished restaurant, surrounded by wrong lighting and mounting costs, and wondered if this was the moment everything fell apart. The next 3 days were brutal. Nathan was unreachable, in meetings, on calls, preparing for Friday. Claire managed the restaurant chaos as best she could, making decisions she wasn't qualified to make, approving expenses that made her stomach hurt. Angela called Wednesday afternoon. How is he? Claire asked before Angela could speak. Terrible. He's not sleeping, barely eating. He's in full crisis mode. Angela's voice was worried. I've seen him stressed before, but this is different. This is personal. Yes. Angela paused. He cares about you. I know that probably makes this harder, but I thought you should know. Whatever happens Friday, it's not because he doesn't care. It's because he's terrified of losing everything. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like he's trying to have it all and forgetting that sometimes you have to choose. The words stung because they were true. What do you think he should choose? I think he should choose what makes him happy, but Nathan's never been good at that. He's good at sacrifice and strategy and control. Happiness is... Angela sighed. That's new territory. Thursday night, Nathan finally called. How are you? Claire asked. I've been better. His voice was exhausted. How's the restaurant? Coming together. The lighting is fixed, mostly. We're still over budget, but it's manageable. Good. That's good. Silence stretched between them. Nathan, about tomorrow, I don't want to talk about it. We have to talk about it. Why? So we can discuss all the ways this might go wrong? So we can plan for the worst? His voice was sharp. I've been doing that for 3 days straight. I don't want to do it with you too. Then what do you want? I want... He stopped. I don't know. I just want this to be over. What if it doesn't go the way you hope? Then I'll deal with it. How? I don't know, Claire. His control was cracking. I don't have a plan for losing everything. I don't have a strategy for watching my company get taken away because I chose a restaurant and a relationship over profits. I'm trying to get through tomorrow without falling apart. Claire felt tears building. I'm sorry. For what? For making this harder. For being another complication when you needed simple. You're not a complication. Nathan's voice softened. You're the only thing keeping me sane right now. Even when we're arguing, even when I'm scared out of my mind, you're... He paused. You're what matters. I just hope that's enough. It will be. How do you know? Because I believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. I love you. The words hung in the silence. You don't have to say it back, he continued quickly. I needed you to know, before tomorrow, before everything potentially changes. I needed you to know that it's not just complicated feelings or fear of being alone. It's real. You're real. And I love you. Claire was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I love you too. Yeah? Yeah, even though you're terrible at asking for help and you try to control everything and you make me want to scream sometimes. He laughed, broken and relieved. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. That's really sad. I know. His voice was warm now, some of the tension released. I need to go. Early meeting tomorrow before the board. But Claire? Yeah? Thank you for staying, for fighting, for all of it. Always. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. Claire went to Haven early, unable to sleep, and found herself sitting in the dining room as weak winter light filtered through the windows. The space was almost finished now, the mismatched furniture arranged just right, the fireplaces installed and tested, the warm lighting finally working, the plants arriving next week. Everything coming together into something that actually looked like what she'd imagined. A place where people could feel safe, where mess was allowed, where imperfection was the point. She thought about Nathan, probably in that conference room right now, facing down board members who wanted him to choose, the company or everything else, control or chaos, safety or risk. She knew which one he'd been trained to choose his whole life. She just hoped he'd learned enough to choose differently. Her phone rang at 11. Angela. It's over, Angela said. Claire's heart stopped. And? He walked out. What? He presented his case, showed them the projections, the timeline, the vision for Haven. Richard tore it apart, showed the cost overruns, the delays, questioned Nathan's judgment. Angela's voice was shaking. They were about to vote when Nathan stood up and said he was done. Done with what? Done defending himself, done justifying every decision, done letting them reduce everything to numbers and risk assessments. Angela paused. He told them Haven wasn't just a restaurant. It was proof that he could build something without sacrificing his humanity, that he could choose people over profits, that he could be the kind of father and man and partner who valued warmth over perfection. Claire's throat was tight. What did they say? Richard called for the vote anyway, 4-4 again, same split. Angela's voice changed, and Claire heard the smile. But then Nathan did something incredible. He thanked them for their time, said he appreciated their concern, and told them he was stepping back from direct operational control of the company, regardless of the vote. He what? He's staying on as majority shareholder, but he's handing day-to-day operations to a CEO team, effective immediately. He said he spent 7 years building an empire and 0 years building a life, and he's done getting the ratio backwards. Claire couldn't breathe. Is he Where is he? On his way to you. He left the building 10 minutes ago, said there was someone he needed to see. Claire stood up, her hands shaking. Angela, he chose you, Claire. He chose Ethan and Haven and a life that isn't controlled by spreadsheets and board meetings. He chose what matters. The call ended. Claire walked to the windows, looked out at the street, and waited. 5 minutes later, Nathan appeared. He was still in his suit, his tie loosened, walking fast like he was afraid she might not be there. Claire met him at the door. You walked away, she said. I did. From your company, from everything you built. Not from everything. Just from the part that was killing me. Nathan stepped inside, looked around the restaurant. This is what I want to build now. This and... He gestured between them. This. Nathan, are you sure? Because once you... I'm sure. He crossed to her, took her hands. I spent the last week calculating every possible outcome, every scenario, every risk, every potential loss. And you know what I realized? What? That the only scenario I couldn't live with was the one where I chose the company and lost you, lost Ethan, lost the chance to be someone who prioritizes people over profit. His voice was steady now, certain. So I'm choosing differently, choosing warmth over perfection, choosing mess over control, choosing you. Claire was crying again, but this time it felt like relief. You're insane. Probably, but I'm done being the calculating billionaire who has everything except what matters. I want to be Ethan's dad. I want to be your whatever we are. I want to build this place and make it exactly what we envisioned. He pulled her closer. I want a life. And I can't have that while running an empire. What about the board, Richard? Richard can have the operational control he wants. I'll still own majority shares. I'll still have input on major decisions. But the daily grind, the constant meetings, the pressure to maximize every quarter... Nathan shook his head. Someone else can have that. I'm done. Your employees will be fine. Better, probably. I hired good people. They don't need me micromanaging every decision. He touched her face. I need to be here. With you. With Ethan. Building something that actually matters. Claire searched his face. You're really doing this. I really am. No more calculating, no more strategy. I'm sure I'll still calculate. It's who I am, but I'm going to try not to let it control everything. Nathan smiled, and it reached his eyes. You'll have to keep calling me out when I slip. Oh, I will. Good. He kissed her then, deep and certain, and Claire felt the last of her doubt dissolve. When they pulled apart, Nathan looked around the restaurant again. It's beautiful, he said. Exactly what we talked about. We're not done yet. Still a month of work, maybe more. Then we have time. Time for what? To do this right. To build it together. To make it everything Ethan needs. Everything we need. Nathan took her hand. I want you to be my partner in this, not just the creative director. Equal ownership, equal say, a real partnership. Claire stared at him. Nathan, that's too much. It's exactly right. You built this vision. You fought for it. You made me see what it could be. His grip tightened. And I'm tired of treating everything like a transaction. This isn't me paying you or hiring you. This is me asking you to build something with me, as equals. I don't have money to invest. I don't want your money. I want your heart, your instincts, your willingness to tell me when I'm wrong, He stopped. Your love, if you'll give it. Claire felt like her chest might burst. You already have it. Then that's all the investment I need. They stood there in the unfinished restaurant, surrounded by furniture that didn't match, and lighting that had cost too much, and a vision that had nearly destroyed everything. And Claire felt something settle into place. This was what Haven was always supposed to be. Not just a restaurant, but a second chance. For Nathan to be present. For her to be valued. For both of them to build something warm and imperfect and real. We should tell Ethan, Claire said, about the partnership, about all of it. Agreed. I'm picking him up from school in an hour. You want to come? You're picking him up? I am now. I cleared my schedule. Permanently. Nathan smiled. Turns out when you step back from running a company, you have a lot more time for the things that actually matter. They locked up the restaurant and walked out into the December cold. The city moved around them, indifferent and relentless. But for the first time in months, Claire felt like she could breathe. Nathan's hand found hers. "You know this isn't going to be easy," she said. "We're going to fight, make mistakes, probably screw up a dozen times before we figure out how to do this right." "I know. And Ethan's going to have hard days, days where he's scared or angry or grieving his mom. We can't fix that with a restaurant." "I know that too. And Haven might fail. We might open and discover nobody wants what we're offering. All this risk, all this sacrifice, and it might not work." Nathan stopped walking, turned to face her. "Claire, I spent 7 years trying to eliminate every risk, control every variable, guarantee every outcome. And you know what I got? A perfect empire and a lonely life." He squeezed her hand. "I'm done with guaranteed. I want worth it. And you, Ethan, this place, you're worth it, even if it all falls apart. That's the least strategic thing you've ever said." "I'm learning from the best." They picked up Ethan together. His face lit up when he saw them both waiting outside the school. "Did you get fired?" he asked Nathan immediately. "What? No. Why would you think that?" "Because you're never here at pickup. Maria always gets me." Ethan looked between them. "Did something bad happen?" "Actually, something good happened," Nathan said. He knelt down to Ethan's level. "I'm going to be picking you up more often now, and having dinner at home, and coming to your games. All of it." "Really? Really? I made some changes at work so I can be here more." Ethan looked suspicious. "What kind of changes?" "The kind where I let other people run the boring meetings, and I focus on the stuff that matters, like you." Nathan paused. "And Claire and I are going to run Haven together, as partners. Does that mean Claire will be around more too? If that's okay with you." Ethan considered this seriously. Then he looked at Claire. "Can we still do crafts?" "Absolutely." "And you'll come to my games?" "Everyone. Even when you and Dad are being gross and kissing?" Claire laughed. "Even then." "Okay." Ethan grabbed both their hands. "Can we get hot chocolate? I'm freezing." They found a cafe with mismatched chairs and wobbly tables, the kind of place Nathan probably would have dismissed a month ago. Now he sat without complaint, drinking mediocre hot chocolate and listening to Ethan talk about his day. Claire watched them together, the father learning to be present, the son learning to trust, and felt that shift in her chest again. This was what mattered. Not the perfect presentation or the flawless execution, just this. People trying, people showing up, people choosing warmth over perfection. Later, after they dropped Ethan home with Maria and promised to be back for dinner, Nathan and Claire walked through Central Park. "I have a question," Nathan said. "Okay. When Haven opens, will you move in with me? With us?" Claire stopped walking. "Nathan, we've been together for like 2 weeks." "I know. It's too fast, too much, completely unreasonable." He turned to face her. "But I'm tired of being reasonable. I'm tired of calculating the right timeline and the appropriate pace. I love you. Ethan loves you. We have a giant apartment with rooms nobody uses. And I want to come home to you. Not someday, not when it makes strategic sense. Now. What if it doesn't work out?" "Then we'll figure it out. But I'm done letting fear of failure stop me from trying." Nathan stepped closer. "I spent 7 years playing it safe and being miserable. I'm not doing that anymore." Claire thought about her tiny apartment in Queens, about coming home to an empty space every night, about building a life with someone who was finally learning to value mess over perfection. "Okay," she said. "Really?" "Really. But I have conditions." "Name them." "I keep my own space, a room that's mine, where I can go when you're being insufferable and I need distance." "Done. What else?" "We tell Ethan together. Make sure he's okay with it before we commit." "Agreed." "And you have to promise that if this gets hard, when this gets hard, you won't default to control. You'll talk to me, fight with me, be messy with me." Nathan pulled her close. "I promise." "Even when it's terrifying?" "Especially then." They kissed in the middle of Central Park, while joggers passed and tourists took photos, and the city continued its relentless pace around them. And for the first time in 7 years, Nathan Hale wasn't thinking about the next meeting or the next acquisition or the next way to prove his worth. He was just there, present, alive. Haven opened on January 15th, not with a splashy event or celebrity endorsements or The kind of fanfare Nathan's restaurants usually commanded. Just a quiet opening with friends, family, and a handful of food critics who'd agreed to give the place a chance. The reviews were mixed. Some praised the warmth and authenticity. Others criticized the lack of polish, the mismatched aesthetic, the menu that felt too simple for the price point. Nathan read them all and didn't change a thing. "We're not trying to impress critics," he told Claire. "We're trying to create a space where people feel at home." And slowly, they did. Families came for Sunday dinners. Couples celebrated anniversaries in the corner booths. Solo diners sat at the bar and chatted with Simone about the menu. Children ran between tables and nobody scolded them. Someone spilled red wine on the upholstery, and Nathan just shrugged and said that's what made it lived in. Ethan loved it. He did homework at table 6 every afternoon after school. He helped fold napkins. He taste-tested new desserts and gave brutally honest feedback. He brought friends and showed them the restaurant his dad built, proud in a way he'd never been about Aurelius. 3 months after opening, they were breaking even. 6 months in, they had a waiting list. Not because Haven was the hottest new restaurant or the most innovative concept, but because people wanted what it offered. A place to be themselves. A place where imperfection wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated. Nathan and Claire built a life around it. They lived in the too-big apartment that slowly became lived in. They fought about scheduling and finances and whose turn it was to pick up Ethan from soccer. They made up on the couch while Ethan pretended not to notice. They built something real and messy and completely imperfect. 1 year after Haven opened, Nathan proposed. Not with a grand gesture or a perfect plan, just a quiet moment in the restaurant after closing, both of them exhausted and paint-stained from touching up the wall where a customer had bumped it. "Marry me," he said. Claire looked up from the paint can. "What?" "Marry me. Make this official. Be my partner in everything, not just the restaurant." "Nathan, we're covered in paint." "I know. But I don't want to wait for the perfect moment. I want this moment, messy and real, and us." Claire set down the paintbrush. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. Even though I drive you crazy? Especially because of that. You make me better. You make me braver. You make me—" He stopped. "You make me want to be the kind of person who deserves you. So yes, I'm sure." Claire looked at him, this man who'd tested her honesty, fired her publicly, and then slowly, painfully learned to choose warmth over control. This man who was learning to be a present father, an honest partner, a person who valued mess. "Yes," she said, "but we're not having a perfect wedding. Wouldn't dream of it." They married 6 months later in Haven, surrounded by mismatched furniture and warm lighting and everyone who mattered. Ethan was the ring bearer and cried during the vows. Simone catered. The speeches were too long and too honest. Someone's kid knocked over a centerpiece. The cake was slightly lopsided. It was perfect in its imperfection. 2 years after Haven opened, on a cold Tuesday in November, Claire stood in the restaurant and watched Nathan teach Ethan how to fold napkins. They were terrible at it. The folds were uneven, the corners didn't match. The whole thing was a disaster. Nathan laughed and tried again. Ethan laughed harder. Claire thought about the night this all started. The money on the table. The test. The firing. How terrified she'd been, standing in that alley, convinced her life was over. She thought about how wrong she'd been, because this was her life now. This restaurant that welcomed mess. This family that chose presence over perfection. This man who'd learned that control wasn't the same as connection. This boy who was learning that mistakes weren't the end of the world. Haven wasn't just a restaurant. It was proof that people could change, that warmth mattered more than perfection, that choosing what you love was braver than choosing what you're supposed to want. Nathan looked up, caught her watching, and smiled. "You okay?" he called across the dining room. "Yeah," Claire said. "I'm good." And she was. Not because everything was perfect. Not because they'd figured it all out. Not because the journey had been easy or the outcome guaranteed. But because they'd chosen each other. Chosen mess over control. Chosen to show up even when it was hard. Chosen to build something warm and imperfect and real. That night, after Haven closed and Ethan was asleep, and the city quieted to its nighttime hum, Nathan and Claire sat by one of the fireplaces and just existed. No strategy, no planning, no calculating the next move. Just two people who'd learned that the best things in life aren't the ones you control. They're the ones you choose. And they'd chosen well.